Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be doing a two-parter interview with Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. In part one, he will speak about the program's record-breaking year, his retirement plans, and breaks down the future of the program. In part two, we'll talk with Coach Brown about his coaching career. He'll speak about how the sport has changed throughout the years and discuss his coaching philosophy. But when we return from break, we'll be joined by Bagdad High School baseball coach Dalton Mills. He'll speak about the program's trip to the championship game, how he plans to develop his sophomore ace, and talks about the offseason. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Bagdad High School baseball coach Dalton Mills. Coach Mills, welcome onto the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us back.
Well, we're happy to have you again, Coach. The Sultans finished the 2022 season with a 14-1 overall record, 7-0 in region, earning them the number 2 rank in the state. Coach, before we dive into your very long playoff run, I'd love to just kind of get your opinions on the regular season. How did you feel the year went? Were you guys able to set and accomplish the goals you put out?
We did a lot of great things. Obviously, our goal was to win at the end. We didn't do that, but our goal is always to build better men and make them better when they leave. Hopefully, we've accomplished that. As far as not winning the championship, that was a bummer, but we did do some good things. We had 3 different kids throw no-hitters, and then we had a kid break the 1A stolen base record for a season, Cooper Williams, and deep playoff run. It was our school's 10th state runner-up, so that's a big deal, and 24th region championship. So, pretty good success that they've built on. It's unfortunate we didn't get over the top, but sometimes that's how it goes, and sometimes that's how the game of baseball goes. So,
we're kind of breaking down that playoff run. Obviously, like you said, Coach, you guys get a chance to take on Mogollon at the end, an 8-2 loss. But let's backtrack a little bit about this playoff run. You guys start off first round beating Mojave Accelerated, a region team, 12-0 in the first round. Then you guys face Tempe Prep. Can you take us through that game from Tempe Prep and then going into that next matchup against St. David? How did you feel your team did in those 2 games as we lead up to that championship game?
We did well. Tempe Prep was probably a little better team than we envisioned. We didn't know a lot about them. They had a few really good players, and then their coach does a good job of fake bunt slashing, distracting the pitcher, putting the ball in play, focusing on barreling balls up, and so they did a really good job. We started Shane Hooper in that game, which he's our sophomore and he's going to be our number 1 next year. Mm-hmm. He did good. He was sick the week before, so we originally had him scheduled to throw the first game, and then Connor was going to throw the second game, but because Shane was sick and had the flu and stuff, we wanted to give him an extra couple days and make sure he was right. And we feel good with both of our pitchers. We had two strong kids on the mound, and we really feel like it doesn't matter which kid we throw, that we're going to be successful with it. So Shane came out and did a good job. I think he gave up 2 hits in the game, no earned runs, and he did a good job all year. That carried over into the St. David game, which he started the St. David game, which I asked the St. David coaches, did you think you were going to get Connor or Shane? And they're like, we didn't know for sure. We tried to prepare for both. With Shane, they're like, we heard he had a really good curveball, but we did not know his velocity was going to be as good as it was, especially for being a sophomore. Yeah. So he gave up 4 hits in that game, 7 strikeouts. Shane had 20 strikeouts in the 2 playoff games he pitched, throwing 13 2/3 innings. So good run for a sophomore, a lot of confidence going into the future for him. And then we felt like we set it up well for the championship game, having Connor, because Mogollon had seen Shane twice. The second time Shane had quite a bit of success against them. And, but we're like, they've never seen Connor. We got on the big stage. We didn't play as well as we would have liked. You know, pitching, our at-bats weren't as great. Maybe got caught up a little bit in the moment, but overall, great run for these guys and good way for the seniors to go out.
Like I said, a phenomenal season, a long playoff run for you guys. Coach, what did you tell your seniors after that championship game?
You know, we're proud of them. They had a good run. Cooper Williams, you know, is kind of like our vocal leader, going about doing things the right way. I was just proud of how he carried himself as a leader. Connor Watson, our pitcher, you know, is super athletic, does a great job on the mound and behind the plate. He got recruited to go to Arizona Christian, and we're not sure if he's going to catch or pitch. But just those guys, most of them have been in the program for 4 years. I think maybe one of them had been in for 3 years. And just proud of them for like leading the way and setting an example and kind of just building on the tradition. And of course, it was unfortunate to get a loss, but I wouldn't trade them. I wouldn't trade them for the other team. You know, I'm super excited about our season and just getting to work with those guys for 4 years.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Obviously, you know, any kid getting an opportunity to compete at the next level or go to, you know, the next level on a scholarship, that's always great. So congratulations also on that, Coach, sending another kid to the second level. I want to ask, you know, obviously I say this all the time. I've asked a lot of coaches, you know, experience, obviously you can't teach experience. You have to experience it. You know, you guys are not unfamiliar with the championship, but I want to ask, you know, you've got a great core of sophomores this year, which we'll talk about. You know, Shane Hooper's one of them. Deegan Owings is one of them. You know, no junior on the roster this season, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So, Coach, I want to ask, for that younger group who are now your juniors, who will then be your seniors next season, you know, what does that mean to them going forward? Because now they're officially the upperclassmen with the seniors gone.
Right. You know, we don't have a lot of our seniors coming up. Our juniors going to be seniors coming up. We don't have a lot of them in any of our sports, and our sophomores pretty much know that they're kind of like the leaders, and they've been told that for a few months now. And Deegan Owings, Joe Gonzalez, Shane Hooper, and there's a few more of them. They've been playing together since they were 9-10 years old, playing travel ball together. Their expectations are to like get back there and get a win. And you know, I wasn't there yesterday. I went to Chino's graduation, but they were already back on the field working yesterday, and they're going to go to Flagstaff on Thursday and play baseball. So like, they're ready to go. I think it'll make them hungry, and I think that they have a point to prove that they can get it done.
Coach, do you feel that without a junior, did you see any of your sophomores sort of step up and be that vocal leader? I know you had a core of seniors, and I'm not going to take away any leadership that they attributed to the team, but I'm curious, did you see any of those underclassmen sort of step up and take that sort of junior role where you're sort of in the middle of being a senior and still an underclassman?
Right. I did see that. And like in the championship game, we got down early. It was 3-0 in the first inning. And then in the third inning, the kids come in on the field, and Shane Hooper says, "Why are we panicking? We've been behind before." You know, he's the sophomore speaking up, trying to like gather the troops and like taking on that leadership role. And that's a good thing. And Deegan Owings has a lot of those similar attributes. He's not afraid to speak out, and he doesn't care that he's a sophomore, and he'll say what he feels is right, needs to be done. And those guys just believe in themselves, and they believe in where they're at and how they can play, and they feel like they belong. And I would say that the seniors think that those kids all belong also.
Again, we were speaking with Bagdad High School baseball coach Dalton Mills. The Sultans finished the 2022 season with a 14-1 overall record, 7-0 in region, earning them the number 2 rank in the state. Made it all the way to the championship game against Mogollon this season. Coach, let's talk about that sophomore group. I mean, obviously we know they're very, very talented, but you know, them alongside with your freshmen, I mean, where do you think they go from here? How do you continue their development into next season?
Well, we've already started. Like I said, they were on the field yesterday. We started 3 sophomores, started 3 freshmen, and we have some other sophomores and freshmen that can contribute. So they already got 14 to 16 games scheduled for the summer, which for a 1A team is pretty amazing. We don't shy away from competition. We're playing Flagstaff this next week. We'll play some bigger schools throughout the summer. We usually go to Kingman and play a couple schools up there. So we're working to get better, and I think that they're going to be fine. I think that it's really our starting infield comes back. We're going to have Deegan's probably going to slide into the number 2 role as a pitcher. We got Nick Martinez that can pitch a little bit. We got Bubba Myers that can pitch a little bit. He's a freshman. Michael Langston's a freshman that can pitch a little bit. We're just really looking to develop a catcher and outfield. Our starting infield spots are pretty solid. So we'll see how it goes in that development over the summer.
We talked, you mentioned Shane Hooper a lot, your sophomore ace. I'm going to start calling him the Outlaw just because, I think that's a fun name with Shane. It's an old Western.
Right.
But anyway, you got another great sophomore pitcher in Deegan Owings, who you're going to be bringing back next season. I don't want to talk. We talked a lot about Shane. I want to talk a little more about Deegan's. What does he offer in terms of contrast to Shane on the mound?
Right. Deegan's a competitor. He actually came in the championship game, ended up with bases loaded. He got a ground ball to get a double play to get 2 of the outs, and they ended up getting a single to score 2 runs. But he's going to battle. The moment's never too big for him. Those two have been kind of battling together over the years, being the 1-2 pitcher on their teams growing up. They just feed off of each other really well. And then Joe Gonzalez, our shortstop, I think he's probably, with the Porter kid from Mogollon graduating, I think Joe Gonzalez probably steps in and might be the best shortstop in 1A. I know that's a lot to say about a junior coming up, but athletically, he's super talented and can do some good things also.
What about JV, Coach? How did the JV season go, and who might you be looking to bring up this season? Next season.
JV wise, I think we only had like 8 games. We'd like to up that a little bit. But we got some guys some work. Nick Martinez, he played third base and outfield for us, but on JV, we've been developing him as a catcher. We're hoping maybe that he can come into that catching mode. He hit like 4 something as a freshman, which is pretty solid. He was at one time top on the team in doubles, hits in our 4-hole. So like we have a lot of hope for him. Michael Langston can pitch. He's kind of a soft, he pitches, but he doesn't throw hard, but he has a soft curveball, throws everything soft. He still keeps people off balance. He actually pitched against River Valley in a tournament, and we lost that game 4-2, 4-3. So we're developing those guys. They're going to get a lot of opportunities to prove themselves during the summer. We have another kid named Caleb Gomez that can catch and play outfield that we have some hopes for. So we're really excited about the young guys, and I think we're really excited about the chemistry with all those young guys coming up.
Coach, you kind of talked a little bit about the plan for the offseason. Obviously, you guys are going to be competing in some games. You got a couple kids competing in club. But is there anything specifically that you want to make sure that you guys focus on this offseason, whether it be your approach at the plate or, maybe fielding? Is there just kind of anything specifically that you're going to be targeting this year to get better going into next season?
I think for us, just the mental approach of no matter what game you're playing, no matter who you're playing or where you're playing, we're just playing baseball. It doesn't matter how big the field is. Doesn't matter if you're in a stadium or if you're playing in a field that doesn't get groomed a lot. All the bases are 90 feet, and we got to treat it the same way all the time.
No, I agree, Coach. Has your offseason plan changed at all throughout the years? I want to ask, you talked about, I think you had said either the Tempe prep coach or the St. David coach was the one who gets a little mischievous when it comes to, laying down bunts and some of those slap hits. So I'm curious, is that something that I don't know if you guys, I haven't got a chance to see your team play it, but is that something you guys do? And if not, is there like a way that you think you might incorporate that into your guys' strategy a little bit just to sort of use it against them? I know they're not a region team, so you won't see them really throughout the season.
Right.
But I'm just curious, have you ever played against somebody and they've done something against you and you've kind of been like, okay, maybe we should start to do that a little bit. Does that all happen at all?
Right. I'm always a huge fan of the bunt game and like slashing, and we don't incorporate it as much as I would like. I believe we'll do more of it next year because we're not going to have as much experience. We had a pretty good team average this year. We were right around 390, which is the top I've had in the last 12 years here was 392. So we were right there. I think it was 387, something like that. So we hit the ball really well as a team. But I like to squeeze. I like to double squeeze. We like to do first and third picks. I would like to get into the slash mode a little bit more.
Okay. Well, you know what? Again, Bagdad High School baseball coach Dalton Mills, thank you again, sir, for coming on the show and talking about the program. Just like talking with your counterpart, Sarah Morris, for the softball program, Bagdad, you guys are crazy good in the 1A. That small little town in Yavapai County, you just kind of, you're getting the football program, the youth football program, and get a chance to cover them. It's really impressive just how much talent comes out of that little town, out of Bagdad. And really, I mean, two phenomenal programs at Bagdad High School, the softball program, and of course the baseball program led by this man, Dalton Mills. Coach Mills, long-winded outro aside, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Anything you could do to help cover us, or if you ever need anything, feel free to call.
Well, thank you, Coach. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Don't go anywhere. Off the bench. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Coach Brown, welcome back onto the show.
Thanks, Phil. I like being here. I like chatting with you, so I appreciate you having me.
Well, we're always happy to have you, Coach. First off, congratulations on finishing the 2022 season. The Marauders, for those who are not like me, who got to see them the entire season, finished the year 14-4 overall, 9-3 in region, giving them the number 7 rank in the 4A. Coach, just solely speaking about the regular season, how did you feel that went?
Probably a little not as good as we thought, or I'd hoped for, I guess is the easiest way to say. We had hoped to win our region again, but to finish ranked 7 didn't hurt us too bad in the brackets, but we wanted to win our region. We lost a couple games within our region that, quite frankly, we shouldn't have, and we proved that later. But, it is what it is. We still did what we needed to do, but it's not how we wanted it.
Yeah. Obviously, the Marauders got an opportunity to go in the playoffs. Like I said, they took on region opponent Flagstaff High School in round 1, beating the Eagles 13-3, setting up a round 2 matchup against Greenway High School, who has weirdly become kind of a non-region a rival against Mingus Union. It's not official at all, but just like the past, like last year we matched up with them, and then this year Mingus matched up with them again. So, Coach, I know you did it. You guys played Greenway again. I want to get to that. So the first matchup with Greenway, can you take us through that game?
First matchup meaning in the playoffs or in
the playoffs? Sorry, I know we did match up with them last year. My bad.
Yeah, well, we actually saw them during the regular season this year too. But
that's right.
Yeah, so in the playoffs, the first matchup, we were going in against an undefeated foe that was ranked number 2, and we're on their home field, and we had struggled there earlier in the season. So we knew we had to change our game plan, and we did. We came up with some strategies that worked, and we wound up putting the ball in play and putting 6 runs across the plate and upset them pretty bad. And that, I agree, it didn't help the rivalry that has been created there. But, hey, a big win for us, and it propelled us forward in the state tournament and definitely got us recognized.
Coach, I know you guys took a tough loss to Canyon del Oro, but, what does it mean just more so to get an opportunity to play against a program like that, coming right off the heels of a huge win against Greenway?
Yeah, it was a different experience because we got moved over to a neutral site, Rose Mofford, and their scheduling was a little odd. And not I can make any excuses, but we were definitely deer in a headlight, going into that game, and they definitely weren't. And they're a great ball club, very deep. 24 kids on a roster, coached by a basically famous softball coach for years and well coached. They were they were a locomotive and they steamrolled us, and we weren't ready for it. So I'd love to face them again and see what we could really do, but that didn't come up. So,
of course, that loss against Canyon de Oro, like you said, Coach, moved you guys to a different bracket, gave you an opportunity to take on Greenway again, which would be the third time this year and the fourth time, I believe, in all of school history against Greenway High School. So can you take us through that matchup?
Well, that one was obviously a little bit tense. The other team, it's an elimination game at this point, right? And we were the only ones that had beat them. They went on and beat the snot out of the next team that they played. And then they finally had to move over to the neutral site. And it was a ball game. I mean, it was nothing. We went into extra innings, and there was a lot of heated conversations going on between players, coaches, umpires, you name it. And what a big win. I mean, we went in extra innings off of a giant home run by Mikkel Gordon. Yeah. Pitched lights out in that game and basically dominated against a kid that was supposed to be unbeatable. So,
you talk about Mikkel Gordon's huge home run, the home run that basically won the game. The Marauders were technically the away team, so Greenway still had another opportunity in the bottom of the eighth inning. But, Coach, I want to go through that eighth inning because I got a chance to see a live great game, probably one of the best softball games I've ever been to. What did you tell the girls when that top of the eighth inning started?
Well, I remember telling them it's a one inning wonder now, so it doesn't matter. When you play a high school game, especially in an elimination game, it's a one game wonder, right? So anybody can win if you just figure it out, but you got to play 7 innings, and that's daunting. It's a long game. And, if you score early in the game, it seems like you're playing to not lose from that point on, and you don't really play aggressively. But when you get down to just 1 inning and anybody can win it, then you can go all out and you can give it everything you got because, it's 3 up, 3 down. And then next thing you know, you're in another 1 inning wonder. So I just told them, let's play it 1 inning at a time. Let's win each inning, and we'll only have to do it once.
Let's talk about that bottom of the eighth inning, Coach. I mean, Greenway was threatening early. I believe, if memory serves me right, they had runners either on second and third with no outs or runners on first and second. But regardless, Greenway already threatening early. I mean, I know there was a period where you came to talk to the girls, and same with the bottom of the eighth inning. I mean, Mikkel hits that big home run. You guys go into that inning 1-0. You now find yourselves in a, sort of like you've got all this air in your tire, and then it's, released out where you're like, oh my gosh, they've got runners on now. This is how it's going to end. What was sort of the game plan going into the bottom of the eighth inning outside of course, don't let them score?
Well, yeah, as you said it, right? Don't let them score. We don't want to go into another inning. So it was all or nothing. And a couple of unlikely events happened, and they wound up with runners at first and second with nobody out. And then another batter moved those runners to second and third with less than 2 outs. So, I mean, in their world, that's a pretty good advantage. You got an opportunity not only to tie the game as the home team, but to win it with a good hit. And we had to get a hold of 2 other batters and handle them because the next girl on deck was the kid we've been avoiding the entire series. And so we couldn't, if she comes up with the bases loaded, we can't just walk her, and we have to face her. And so reality is Alexis was able to get a ground ball to third base, which is where we want the ball in that situation. So, strikeouts are a big deal, but when a pitcher can get a hitter to hit the ball exactly where they want, just like in major leagues, you try to induce a double play. Right. Held the runner at third and threw the girl out at first, giving us 2 outs. And then she struck out the last girl to win the ball game. And that's a big deal. That girl had hit the ball earlier in the game for a double. And so we were, I was nervous, obviously. Away from her, but she struck her out swinging. So it is what it is, and we won the ball game.
After that, Coach, obviously you guys take on South Point Catholic. I know, again, another game that didn't necessarily go your guys' way, 8-3 loss, but that in itself is a feat, considering looking at the way that South Point had beaten other teams outside of their region, even in throughout the playoffs, where it was 5-inning games, 6-inning games, double-digit deficits, or at least them scoring at least 10 runs. So, Coach, the first time the Marauders made it to the Final Four, I'm just curious, despite that loss to South Point Catholic, I mean, how did you feel your team performed in that one?
I really felt like they performed pretty well. I think they even kind of surprised themselves. South Point, you just look at their statistically, they're so far away down in Tucson. We never see them at tournaments or anything. We don't have any, teams that we face that we can compare to. So you just see them as a giant. And then when they show up and we play them and knowing we had to beat them twice is a daunting task, but we wanted to play them well one game. And at one point it was 5-3 and it was a game we could play with them. And we realized that, and I'd love an opportunity to play this team against that team again multiple times just to kind of get a better gauge of where we could have been. But we dropped the ball a couple times there at the end to make the score a little bit lopsided. But in reality, I thought we gave them a great game. And I told the girls, if you were going to get to a state championship, this is the team you're going to face. So this is where you want to be right now. And let's just see what happens. And it didn't go our way, but I was still very proud of my kids. I wasn't in any way disappointed in their performance.
Again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. The Marauders finished the 2022 season with a 14-4 overall record, 9-3 in region, earning them the number 7 rank in the 4A. Made it all the way to the Final Four in the state tournament this year before losing to South Point Catholic, which we just talked to Coach Brown about that just a few seconds ago. Coach, let's talk about this senior class. There was a moment where you thought maybe you were kind of done after I don't think it was the 2019 season or maybe during the pandemic year where you kind of figured this might be it. But you stuck around with this group, the senior class, consisting of Marissa Vaca, Mariana Lopez, Alexis Erisman, Ella Balo, Mikkel Gordon. I know I'm missing a few names, Mackenzie Figge, a very talented senior class. And I just want to ask, a record-breaking year, first and foremost. Alexis Erisman is now the all-time leader in strikeouts at Mingus Union High School with 300. She was top 5 in the state this year in strikeouts. If we really look at it, I'm sure she's at least top 15 in strikeouts in the country. Marissa Vaca, same thing. She set the stolen base record this year with 44, which is most than many teams had combined throughout this entire season. Like I said, we had talked throughout the year. Cameron Jones, who I know wasn't a senior but a junior, she kind of came out of the woodworks this year. Looking more so at that senior class, Mikkel Gordon having that huge home run against Greenway. That obviously turns the tide of the season. Ella Balo, a leadoff hitter. She lays down that beautiful bunt to get the Greenway game going, that first matchup at Greenway. So, Coach, I'm kind of answering the question for you, and I know all these girls because I've seen them throughout the season, but I want to ask you, Coach, this senior class, I mean, what do they mean to you as a group?
Well, you're right. In 2018, I had kind of done the senior walk with my daughter when she graduated. And then I knew there was a solid chance that 2019, the group that was left could go pretty deep in the state tournament. We had some stallions, Maddie Bejarano and Nikki Zelensky. Those kids were, big names in Mingus softball, and they went on in 2019. They had a great season, went deep in the state tournament. And then these kids in this group were freshmen that year, and they got a taste of it. And they had won a lot of softball tournaments in their club scene under the Verde Valley Heat name. And so I knew that this team had an opportunity in their age class to be very competitive. Obviously, we didn't know COVID was going to hit and do what it did. Who knows where this team could have been with 4 years of actual playing time. But I felt compelled to stick it out. And this group, they played together well. Like you said, there's 6 seniors right now, 3 juniors, all played together since they were like 10 years old. So you just don't get that very often. And I didn't want to walk away and leave that on the table. And I'm glad I didn't. They're a special group, my last group, and I wouldn't want to go out with any other group but that group.
You kind of have a sort of pseudo senior in Sydney Stapleton who has decided to go play college, graduate early and go play at Phoenix College alongside Alexis Erisman. Coach, I know she's not technically a senior. She is, but not. I don't know what I'm saying. But let's talk about the battery, Coach. I mean, we've talked to death about Alexis Erisman, but Sydney Stapleton has been right there alongside her throughout the entire 4 years that Alexis has been at Mingus Union, or maybe 3. I don't know what if Sydney had played on JV her first year. But regardless, Coach, what can you say about your catcher for the past couple of years and what she's meant to not only Alexis's development, but to the program as well?
Everything. A catcher is the cornerstone of the program, right? So, when one kid leaves and you're looking at who's next, and Sydney was that kid, It was a toss-up. There was also Kiki Saravo had caught back then, and kind of pushed the Sydney envelope and moved Kiki to third. But Sydney has just been steady, rock steady. She got the most improved player in our awards ceremony this year because it wasn't just about being able to catch the ball, frame the pitches, block pitches. She has to be a leader. She's got to call cutoffs. She's got to tell the infield where the play's at while they're looking to the outfield for a ball. And she did that this year. She stepped up and just owned it. And she had a great season for us as well. And a lot of times, like you said, she doesn't get the limelight, right? She's not the one that threw the pitch, but she's the one that caught the ball. And she gets as many strikeouts as the pitcher does because she's the one helping with it. She's been a rock for us. And I'm kind of glad I'm leaving too, because she's leaving and we would have had to start all over from scratch with a catcher. So she will be missed at Mingus softball. That's for sure.
Well, like you said, Coach, at the end of the season, as Sydney was right there with Alexis. She's thrown just as many pitches as as Sydney has caught. And really, the two of them are going to be a very tough battery to replace. But again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. The Marauders finished the 2022 season with a 14-4 overall record, 9-3 in region, earning them the number 7 rank in the state. Coach, let's talk about, I know you yourself will not be coming back to the program next season as you are officially retired. We will talk about that when we come back in our two-parter interview with Coach Brown. But I want to ask, obviously the program will be welcoming back some familiar faces, two of which that come immediately to mind are McKenna Watson. I have a Mikkel Watson, great. McKenna Watson and Cameron Jones, your left fielder and right fielder respectively. Can you talk a little bit about how they developed this season and what you could see potentially from them their senior year next year?
Well, and there's also Kiki Saravo. She'll be coming back as well. So they've got the 3 kids there, all good kids. McKenna is our junior captain. So, I mean, they've got leadership there. They have some outfield structure there between her and Cam. And then Kiki was playing third. And like I said, she can catch. So I don't know what they're with her. But I know I'll be watching and I'll be helping the kids with some batting practice and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, all 3 of those kids had good seasons this year, and I know they're going to have exceptional seasons next year. I'm concerned the program, the depth of it that we've always had as far as pitching goes, and who knows who's going to end up being the coach. But those 3 kids will shine. They did this year, so there's no reason they shouldn't again next year.
Coach, you had a freshman on the roster this season, Sabrina Zunich. We talked a little bit about her when you were on the show during the regular season. Sabrina came in and filled a great role as the backup to Mikkel Gordon at first, while also coming in multiple pinch running situations and also got a couple opportunities up at the bat. So, Coach, since we last talked about Sabrina, I mean, how has she developed throughout the season, and what is this experience being on varsity? How does it help her in going into next year?
Well, I think it jumpstarts her. It gives her an opportunity to come in with a lot of experience as a sophomore, be a leader. She learned all aspects of the game, and we wanted Sabrina on the varsity program as a role player, but she just has a good chemistry with these kids. Even though they were seniors, they got along instantly. I could see that during tryouts, and we needed a runner type role and a substitute for an infield. And she could pretty much play anywhere on the infield if she wanted to. And she can hit the ball really well. So she's an overall player. She's just very young. And so she got a jump start and got to be a part of this program the whole season and learn a lot. So I expect her to jump right in and be an impact player next year, be a leader. Good kid, good family. Obviously, I have some history with her and her family that is sentimental, and I was glad that I was able to coach her at least 1 year before I was done.
Taking a look, Coach, at the JV again, I know you're not going to be back next season, but you're very familiar with the girls down at the JV level. You brought a couple up for the state playoffs just to give some more depth. What are you expecting from the JV program as some more of the JV players make their way onto varsity next year?
Well, a ton of athleticism. I mean, we had more freshmen come out this year that actually made the JV team and could compete than we ever have. And so I really feel like they've got an athletic group of kids. They just have to develop into, they got to develop pitching and they got to develop a few other specialized things. But overall, athletic. They can hit the ball. They can run fast. They're just ball players. And so I think they're going to be very competitive with a very young group, which will give them some time to develop that over the next 3 years. There were two or three of them that came up and played with us in state, and they more or less practiced with us, but they could have been injected into any of those games and helped us. So I think that there's a lot of depth there, and I think it's going to be a good program if they can just develop some pitching.
Well, hopefully they will be able to develop some pitching, Coach. We're very excited to see the future of this program. I mean, like I said, Coach Brown is retired now officially. He's no longer the head coach at Mingus Union High School. But regardless, this program is in very, very good hands, Coach. You got a great support staff around you. I know there's not an official head coach named yet, but people like Shauna Figge, Brian James, Julie Saravo, who's been outside of the program, who's helped out. I know there's a bunch of names, Coach. So before we go into our first break, I just want to say, what can you say to your support staff who's helped you out throughout this season?
Without them, I'm not the coach that everybody thought I was. I mean, that's the reality of it. And, there was another guy, Bo Schultz, who used to be a big part of this program. He moved out of state, but Shauna Figge has been outstanding for me all year. She's the one that's there on time and takes care of the girls and does all the photos on social media. Brian is Brian. He's awesome. He's our announcer.
Brian is Brian.
Great guy. The girls love him. And then my daughter, Miranda, is my assistant coach. She brings a strategic level to the game, playing the ball at the level she did, college national championship, she sees things I don't. And she has a rapport with the girls that I can't have. So it just really, without that group of people all together, we wouldn't have had the success we had.
A very successful season for the Mingus Union Marauders in 2022, made it all the way to the Final Four in state competition. Our conversation with Coach Brown is not done. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about Coach Brown. We'll talk about his career and the changes that he's seen throughout the years coaching softball at Mingus Union. When we come back right here on Off the Bench, don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am still joined by Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Coach Brown and the Marauders finished the 2022 season with a Final Four appearance at state competition this year. Coach Brown has officially retired as the head coach at Mingus Union High School for the softball program. A new head coach has not been named as of this interview. Keep in touch with Mingus Union if you want to know who ends up taking over the program, or check out the Marauder softball Facebook page. I'm sure all that information will be there eventually. Coach Brown, long time ago, well, not really that long ago, it was really more last year. We had you on the show for the first time, and we talked a little bit about how your career got started. It's been a little bit since we've talked a little bit about your origin. So, Coach, how did your coaching career get started?
Well, I think like any coach, Little League, right? I mean, my dad played Little League softball, and they didn't have enough coaches. So in order to have a team, I decided to be a coach, and I wasn't very good at it. So being I decided I needed to be a better coach and learn. And that went into a club atmosphere. We started doing travel ball, and then eventually Sedona High School needed a coach, and the girls that I had in club wanted to play there. So I took on that role for 4 years, and then Mingus became available. And so I opened up and started doing that 13 years ago.
Coach, can we talk a little bit about some of those mistakes you made early on in your coaching career? It can be at the rec level, or it can be more so when you first took over at Sedona.
Yeah, tons of mistakes. I mean, there's so many of them. there. The game is way more complicated than most people realize when it comes to all assets of the game. But just overall ignorance. I never played the game. I never played baseball. I played co-ed softball, but that's, beer league. It's a whole different ball game. And so learning the mechanics of all of it, how to teach kids how to hit, how to teach kids how to throw, field correctly, not hurt themselves. And then the strategies of the game. That was really where I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't understand, hey, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I had to learn from getting beat and watching other coaches school me, basically. Then we did, I've done some clinics, I've done a few things, and just learn from watching the game. But the mistakes you make, there's so many of them, you couldn't even really name it. But I would say the biggest mistake I made was thinking I knew something that I didn't, and somebody showed me that.
How is that transition, Coach, for you from rec to travel? If we take a step back, even more so from high school, you talk about obviously going from the Little League field to the travel club softball scene. Where did the game kind of take a jump for you when you realized, okay, there's actually a next level to this thing?
Yeah, it happened. Our Little League locally, our program, I would end up, coaching a regular team, and then I would get asked to coach the all-star team, which is the group of all of the teams that was supposed to be the best players. We'd go down to, or we'd compete locally and win our region. We did years, and then we'd go down and compete in the the Little League state tournament and just get destroyed. And it was such a difference, a gap between where we were being the best here and then just not even competing down there. And I asked a group one time, I said, I don't understand. It's like you guys practice year round or something. And I said, well, we do. We play club ball. And that's introduced me to it. And then we started playing local tournaments at club after Little League so that the group could play year round. Ended up traveling out of state to California, Colorado, all over the place, and big tournaments. And I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of games that we got under our belt in the off season that made, the kids who went back to Little League better, but then they jumped right into high school, and it certainly helped their high school program that first year. What
would you say is your coaching philosophy?
Win.
Okay.
Play to win. That's the simple thing. So many times you get caught up in, trying to do the fundamentals, or a certain way to swing a bat, or a certain way to play a situation. And in reality, all that matters at the end of the day is that you have more runs on the scoreboard than the other team. And so sometimes you can play to just not lose. Sometimes you can get caught up in, well, I don't know that that's what the book says you should do right here. And I just threw it all out the window. And it's whatever it takes to advance to the next base, whatever it takes to get across home plate and score a run, and get 3 outs when you're on defense. And sometimes it looks unorthodox, but the results were wins.
Now, Coach, you've been coaching for several years now. You went through your career from the rec level all the way to the high school scene. How's the game changed throughout the years? I mean, what have you seen? What trends have you seen come and go throughout the years? And just how has the game changed in general?
Overall, I think, there have been some big highlights in the game of softball. When I first came into coaching, slapping from the left side of the plate, converting kids over to where they would run into the ball when they hit it and have a running start to first. And it was about speed and small ball. And you'd face teams that have 4 or 5 of those kids at the beginning of their lineup. And then throughout my career here, especially in high school ball, that kind of dwindled down a little bit, and it almost went away. It was non-existent. I've seen it kind of creep back in again now. Canyon Del Oro at state this year had quite a few lefties, and so did South Point. But for the most part, when you're playing other teams, they'd have one maybe, and slapping really wasn't a big part of the strategy of the game. So now it seems to be about power, hitting the ball out of the park. Larger kids, stronger kids, they're just up there wailing at the ball, trying to hit it out. And I think South Point had 65 home runs as a team going into the state playoffs, and we had like 25. So, I mean, that seems to be where the game is going. It's about hitting the ball for power, and that takes away the strategy of the base running and the speed part of the game. And so, I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. I like the strategy and the fast pace of the game, but I mean, who doesn't love a home run when a girl hits it, especially in an 8th inning of a state playoff game?
Yeah, to be very specific, yes, of course. Coach, it's interesting. You talk about kind of starting softball. You hadn't played baseball as a kid, or I'm sure you're obviously familiar with it, but you just hadn't really played it. How did you kind of balance the strategy early on in your career? I mean, because like you said, as a head coach, you're not just doing one job. You're not like the third baseman where you go, okay, if the ball comes to me, I'm either going to second or I'm going to first. As the head coach, I mean, you have to think, I'm sure, a few innings ahead. You have to think about, okay, when we get to this point, we're going to do this. When we get to this point, we're going to do this. So how did you kind of coming into the game as a novice sort of balance all of that strategy as a coach?
Well, I think it comes into taking it in small bites and compartmentalizing what each, you're a defensive coach once, you're an offensive coach once. And then you got to realize kids are the ones playing the game. You're not playing the game. Although you have a huge impact by calling pitches or telling them to steal, or if they can go from third to home, that's your role. And so a lot of times, if you ever watch me between innings, I walk out into the coach's box and I scrape the inside of the box with my foot. And that's a reminder to me that this is my part. This is all I can do. I'm not on the field. I can't play it with them. They have to play the game. And, practice is practice. Game is a test. And just like a teacher, I can't take the test for them, but you compartmentalize it. You learn strategies on calling pitches, judging by the way the hitter swings a bat, or how their hands are at, or their feet are, or where they're at in the box. And so I did a lot of that. I called most every pitch, and I'd work with the girls on my strategy there. But on offense overall, I mean, it was a strategy of whether or not we would bunt, swing, steal. Other than that, you just play, and you play it live, because if you're looking at me, it's too late. So reality is, I think, we had a few funky strategies over the years I came up with on my own that worked when we had a kid hurt or a kid that couldn't pitch well. But other than that, really, you just have to be a defensive coach when it's time, be an offensive coach when it's time, and otherwise just let them play the game.
Coach, another thing you do as well is after every inning, whether the Marauders are at home at the bottom of the inning or I'm sorry, at the top of the inning, or whether they're away at the bottom of the inning, you always walk the softball out to your pitcher. And I don't know if that's something that started with Alexis Ayersman or if that's something you've always done, but just, even if it's just Alexis, I mean, what did that kind of do to build her confidence, and why did you start that tradition?
I don't know when it started, but it was a long time ago. And we have two different little superstitions there. My assistant coach, Miranda, my daughter, she was the only one allowed to pick the ball up after the live play, the last out. And she had to hand me the ball, and then the ball couldn't go in the circle unless it was in my hands, and I'd give it to the pitcher. And it was kind of just a superstition, but it gives me an opportunity to reset the pitcher. A lot of times that pitcher just had an at bat or was on base or whatever, and you got to get her to switch over to defense mode and not, worry about her last at bat or catch her breath or whatever. So, we'll talk strategy. These are the batters we're facing. This is what we've done before. Let's get in zone, and I got you, you got me, and let's get it done. And so that was all a thing. If somebody touched the ball before it went in the circle, it had to go back outside of the circle and get touched the right way in the right sequence. Umpires didn't always understand it, but that's what we did, and it seemed to stick. So
another, I don't want to call it a superstition, but another thing that you guys do as well, and something that was kind of jarring for me when I got a chance to actually call a softball game, because of course we had the pandemic that shut down the 2019 season, was the pregame outfits. For any of you who have gotten a chance to go to Mingus Union High School, you'll notice that the girls, before the game starts, they're usually only at home games. Most of the time it's only at home games. Is they'll wear some sort of clothing, some sort of something regarding a theme for that day's game. We've seen hunting season, we've seen beach, we've seen USA, we've seen them even dress up as you, Coach Brown. So another question, was that a trend that also kind of started amongst superstition, or was it just sort of something the girls started doing?
It did. And it's funny, it kind of falls way back into a club national tournament where we did a dance off before each game, and it got the attention of the opposing team. And if they're thinking about you, they're not thinking about their strategy, and you get in their heads. But in 2019, Maddie Bejarano kind of stimulated this a little bit with some of the quirky little, fairy wings and different things that they would wear during warmups, and it got the attention of the other team. But then Ella Balo, our senior captain, just took it to a different level. I think it started last year a little bit, but it definitely kicked into high gear this year, where there was a theme before every home game, and then eventually it was before every state game, and they had to dress up. And I mean, they went from superheroes to me, which was awkward and weird, to things she could think of to really. It helps with the butterflies, right? Before a game, you're thinking about this, you're doing something, the other team's thinking about you, and it worked. And so it became a thing where if it didn't happen, it was going to be a problem. And I know several times moms were stopping at the 99-cent store on the way down to the state tournament to pick them up some of their stuff so they could dress up. But it was definitely a part of our season that made it memorable and helped at the same time.
If you got an opportunity to go down to the Greenway playoff game, right about maybe the third or fourth inning, you would have seen Coach Brown having a conversation with the Greenway the Greenway coach. And of course, everybody's curious as to what's the problem, what's going on. And there's another tradition that the Mingus Union Marauder softball team has started, and I have one of them. I was gifted this by McKenna Watson right before that game started. It was sort of a good luck charm before we got going. And I know it's kind of hard to see if you're watching on Verde Valley TV, but I'll be a little more descriptive. It is a small plastic baby, a human plastic baby that I have in my possession. And it is a tradition at Mingus Union. It is some sort of thing that happens. If you are listening and you've gotten a chance to play against the Marauders at home this season or last year, I'm sure you are also gifted a small human plastic baby. So, John, please, how did this start?
Well, they're everywhere. I like I said, awards banquet, I opened up a bottle of ibuprofen in my coat back thinking I could help my headache, and it was full of those plastic things. But it's funny because it just started as a funny little thing that McKenna did. She'd put it in my stuff, and it was kind of a weird little thing that I was like, what is this? And then next thing you know, they were putting it in the opposing team's dugout as kind of a little, hey, funny thing. And next thing you know, they're out there on the field in different locations. One of them sitting on the pitcher's mound if you walked out there. And it's just always been kind of a funny joke. And it must have got into the other team's heads a little bit, because this year we had a team show up, and they had full-size baby dolls hanging off of their dugout. And it was kind of a poke back at us. Ironically, they lost badly in that game. And then we went down to Greenway in the state playoffs, and in our own dugout, there was a bunch of those little babies. And that scene in the third inning where the coach approached me, she was upset that one of them was out on the pitcher's mound. And I let her know that we didn't bring them. They actually gave them to us this time. So she didn't like that. But anyway, at the end of the day, it became a big thing. And then when we played them again at Rose Mofford, there was one out on the mound, and the umpires got a chuckle out of it. But the coaching staff didn't care for it very much. But, it's another thing. The kids do it. And if you let it get in your head, if you let something that small get in your head as you're getting ready to play a big game, there's your problem, right? And so our kids kind of took it with stride when kids would bring it back to us and thought it was funny because they're in our head, or we're in their head. But McKenna Watson, she came up with it, and it stuck. And I'm not a fan, but still everywhere I look, they're everywhere.
I think it's really funny how the opposing team that brought the full-on size babies are the weirdos in this situation for bringing full-size babies as opposed to the smaller ones. But again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Coach Brown is officially retired with Mingus Union High School as the softball program's head coach. Coach, we got a couple more questions before we officially let you go. First and foremost, do you have a favorite memory coaching along at Mingus Union? Anything that kind of stands out?
I have a ton of memories. Beating undefeated teams, those games are always at the top of my list. Winning a region championship is at the top of my list. If I'm being honest, though, I had an opportunity to coach my youngest daughter. I think my fondest memory is her senior night, stopping the game to hug her before her last at sticks in my head. But other than that, there's so many. I can't even think of one. I had kids hit 20 home runs in a season. And, like I said, beating undefeated teams that we're supposed to not even compete against, and we beat them at our home field. That place is a special place. And we've done things there that we're not supposed to do. So the girls gifted me with a mason jar full of that dirt. And then
wow.
They actually gave me home plate from the field, which ironically was replaced when I started. So literally every run that crossed that plate is while I was coaching. So that was pretty cool. So I get to take that home, and just all the memories with it.
I didn't know that, John. I didn't know you that home plate had been replaced when you started coaching there. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
That's really cool.
They knew that, but that home plate is going on my wall, and it's got the scars to prove all the battles that we've won. So
It's funny you say, the dirt, the girls gave you a jar of dirt. Then I remember you telling me when you guys were going to Greenway, when you guys were playing at Greenway at that playoff game, you guys brought some home dirt with you and you told the girls, hey, pour some next to you and you'll always be at home. So John, whenever you're feeling lonely or you're missing those Marauder softball players, you know what to do, man. You got that jar of dirt. I got one last question for you, John, before we let you go. You got a chance to coach your daughters throughout their playing time at Mingus Union. You talked about Miranda getting a chance to coach along her. What does that mean to you, before we let you go, John, to not only get a chance to see all of them go through your program, but also to coach alongside your daughter, Miranda, these past couple seasons?
It's a special thing to coach them and then coach alongside them, because as a father to a daughter, oftentimes you can't relay life lessons to them individually. They don't want to listen to you, right? They're teenagers, so you don't know anything. But when you can do it in a group setting as a coach and then figure out a way that when you leave the field to become dad again, once you figure that out, I think you've got an advantage as a dad. And then as a coach, to be able to get some input back from kids that you trust their opinion. They're your daughter, right? They're not going to lie to you. And they say, Dad, you shouldn't have done that. That was dumb. The way you said there was stupid. You go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so both of them taught me tons of lessons. And I hope that throughout the game of softball, I was able to teach them some lessons that maybe as a dad, I wouldn't have been able to get across to them as well, because they were just in a group setting and not just dad sitting down trying to tell them what he knows and they don't.
He is Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. John, I could talk for about 30 to 40 minutes saying thank you for, embracing my side of things, coming on the show, being a huge supporter of what we do in terms of broadcasting softball for the Marauders, being so courteous whenever I'd come and ask you questions, or I'd ask you 5 or 6 times for your lineup. And it was always going to be the same lineup, but for some reason I always kept asking you. The home runs, John, they're like I said, I could talk for another 20 to 30 minutes about genuinely about how appreciative I am of how you guys have embraced us here and made me myself as a newbie to the area and a newbie to the school feel very seen while broadcasting the games. And I'm forever grateful for your kindness and for your program accepting myself. And I know there are a bunch of girls who are better because of you. And I appreciate you, John. Thank you.
We appreciate you. What you brought to this game was another person on the field. You were a huge part of it. The girls saw that. They love to take pictures with you. They actually mimicked you. You should know we have a tradition while we're doing a warm up where they, at one point while they're running to catch the ball, instead of yelling ball, 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 they have to impersonate somebody. And it's kind of a roast because they'll make fun of them while they do it. And they all asked, I said, well, who else do you want to roast? And they said, we want to do Philip. And I wish I would have videotaped it. It was pretty good. A lot of your big moments as an announcer were relayed on that field in their voice. So you've been a big part of it, man. Thank you.
Well, John, I appreciate it. And congratulations on many years of successful softball. And I know we'll see you around the area. But seriously, John, I appreciate it. You are phenomenal, John. And I'm going to say one last thing, and it is happy birthday. We will see you next time, John. Thank you again.
That one. Thank you.
That is going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo, wishing you a great rest of your week. We will see you again next time.